What's up, Giant Tornado Trailblazers? I'm Quacker's Coat, and this is the fish fry for November 30th, being held at the spawning grounds. Our cookware for this rotation is the Splattershot, the Octobrush, the Rapid Blaster, and the E-Liter 4K. Spawning grounds is always such a big map to run eggs on, but luckily we have a couple utensils with some really good mobility. That Splattershot and the Octobrush can do a great job at painting the walls and painting the turf. And spawning grounds really needs that paint on the walls. This composition has some pretty good damage output to it as well, so we can't linger too hard on any single target, or stall anything there on the shoreline. And once all these walls are painted, make sure you keep an eye on what is there at the top of the platform. If you didn't know, if you have a squid surge charged up, and you're shooting up that wall, you can do a wall jump in the middle of that squid surge, and keep yourself from getting all the way up to the top where something could splat you. The quicker that we can get to some of these platforms, is less time spent moving, and more time spent causing that damage. So make sure you focus on luring those targets and dealing some crowd control with these weapons that we have. This composition could keep spawning grounds clear, as long as everybody's focusing on causing as much damage with every single one of their shots. This composition has some short range, so it should make a high tide just a little bit easier to deal that damage. As long as that E-Liter player is focused on getting a full charge and dealing as much damage to lessers as well as taking out some of those bosses. If some of these weapons aren't causing damage on a high tide, you're going to find yourself wanting to jump between the platforms and using some of these corner jumps, especially if you got that Octobrush. Move it around, get those revives, and lure some of those bosses into better areas. On a low tide, make sure you get that E-Liter working those lanes. Clear out as many lessers to make it much easier for your teammates. And that Rapid Blaster can do an incredible job on taking out fish sticks and stingers. And you're going to want to focus on stingers as well, because that E-Liter player is probably going to be on the back line, and once they're targeted, they're not going to be able to fire that full charge shot. And the same thing is said for fly fish, so try to keep yourself topped off, especially for that Octobrush. They can run their way in, toss an egg, and have potentially enough ink to get themselves back to the basket. And don't forget to use the incredible coverage that we have of this composition to get that low tide painted. It's really helpful whenever you find yourself overrun and you need to get somewhere with some safety. On a glowfly's occurrence, the Splattershot and the Octobrush can do a fantastic job at holding that damage line. As long as the Rapid Blaster and the E-Liter 4K are able to cause some damage to those goldies, it should be pretty easy to hold your ground. The same thing can be said for a griller's occurrence. The Splattershot can do an incredible job at small fry control, and that Octobrush is able to cause damage to the griller whilst also being on small fry control. Just make sure the Rapid Blaster and the E-Liter are hitting their shots on that griller. On a Cohawk charge, get that Splattershot and that Octobrush moving around the stage and collect those eggs. On a Mothership wave, whenever we have a brush in the composition, make sure you get that thing moving around, taking out boxes, and collecting eggs. All the other weapons have some pretty good range, so make sure you try to pick a side and take out as many Chinooks as they're on their way in. That Rapid Blaster and the 4K can cause some really good damage to that Mothership while it's on its approach. On a Mudmouth wave, since we have that E-Liter 4K, a Mudmouth wave should be pretty fun. Just make sure you keep that Octobrush on lesser control until that golden Mudmouth comes out, and then the E-Liter has a job to do. On a Goldie Seek, it would be best if the brush is able to position themselves in front of the Goldie and keep pace with them, and try to swipe as many eggs out of him as possible. The E-Liter can deal more damage per second if you're just doing tap shots, but you might as well charge it up all the way, that way in case your shot hits a teammate, it'll pierce right through them and cause some damage to that Goldie. The piercing damage of that E-Liter is also an incredible ability to have on a Giant Tornado. Just make sure you position yourself at the beginning or end of the egg chain. That way once those lessers start dropping, you can lead them in a train and take out as many as possible with each charged shot. So let's play this rotation with some excitement. We're about ready to get Marooner's Bay, and Big Run is right around the corner. Let's get to work. Alright, let's get into the cookware. Our first cooking utensil is the Splattershot. The Splattershot is a fantastic mid-range weapon. It can be played quite aggressively, but since we have the Octobrush in this composition, you may want to keep a little bit of distance between you and your enemies. It can do a fantastic job at clearing up a flipper-flopper spot, and once you have a little bit of height, it makes taking out a fish stick really easy. And with this weapon's great mobility, it should make it really easy to push towards some of these shoreline targets, but also use that coverage to get your way back and lure some of those targets to the basket. Our second cooking utensil is the Octobrush. The Octobrush's running speed isn't as fast as the ink brush, and just like the ink brush, that run should not be used as an attack. It should only be used as a way of getting in, getting what you need done, and getting out. And with the damage output of this weapon, it makes it really good at taking out stingers and slamming lids. Look for that moment to activate that slamming lid to cause some massive damage. And just like always with slamming lids, you need to activate them as quick as possible. The longer you wait, the more lessers that are going to pop out of it. And try not to get too much tunnel vision with this weapon. You can easily swoop in, assist them, and get back to the basket to see what everyone else is doing. The Octobrush does support a really aggressive playing style, but it doesn't hurt to get a little bit of height on your enemies and let that ink fall into them, causing some wide damage. If you're going in to deal with a big shot, it wouldn't hurt to ping this way. That way your teammates know that you might be needing a little bit of extra damage output at that moment. Our third cooking utensil is the Rapid Blaster. The Rapid Blaster can do an incredible job on supporting the Splattershot and the Octobrush on whatever they're doing. As long as you make sure that blast can cause as much damage to those lessers, it can be an incredible lesser control tool. And you may want to put a little bit more of a focus on steelheads and stingers. Any way that we can keep that Octobrush from spending too much time on the shoreline or being stalled by a steelhead is super helpful. The Rapid Blaster can also paint mid walls really well. So if you have the Rapid Blaster, try to move between all of the mid platforms without getting too close to that shoreline. Utilize the range that this weapon has. It can be an incredible support tool. Our last cooking utensil is the E-Liter 4K. The E-Liter 4K has the longest range piercing shot in the game, and we need to make sure that we utilize that, causing as much damage as possible. You can easily splat one Quahog with a fully charged shot, but why not splat 3 or more? Utilize that fully charged shot that you have, swim jump it to that right location, and release that blast. And just like with the Rapid Blaster Pro, we have a brush in this rotation. Help them out by taking out those steelheads. And it also does an incredible job at reaching those big shots. So don't get too much tunnel vision on dealing with anything. The E-Liter 4K is a massive part of our damage output, and it needs to get around and cause that damage. So try to project where those lessers are going to be and put you in a spot that lets you get a full charge. You don't want to be tap shotting this thing. It also has a big problem with taking out fish sticks. So try to paint them, and hopefully one of the other 3 players will take it out. Keep that aim tight, and this weapon will lead to success. On an extra wave, the Splattershot and the Octobrush can easily cause some constant damage to the Kohozuna. They're also great weapons for staying close and trying to keep them closer to the center of the map. The Splattershot and the Octobrush are also great weapons to break away from combat and take out a stinger or have enough ink to throw a bomb. The Rapid Blaster and the E-Liter 4K have that damage output at range that might make it a little bit easier to take out bosses. And as always, look for that moment right at the beginning of the extra wave where you can use your special to not just cause damage to the Kohozuna, but to also take out some bosses, spawning some golden eggs early on in the wave. And the fish fry usually comes out before the stage rotation, so if you want to catch these updates when they're hot and fresh, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. And if you want other fellow Grisco employees to receive these tips, make sure you like and share the video. Bye-bye. If you want to give the fish fry an algorithm boost, just comment what your favorite or least favorite weapon is of this composition. I may have to give this one to the E-Liter 4K. There's nothing like taking out an infinite number of Quahogs with just one single shot. Alright guys, bye-bye.